Hello, everybody. Good to see you guys. Welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict. So this is our Q&A session that we promised you. Do you look forward to it, Ross?
I do. I really do. And here's why.
Why?
Many of the comments are remarkably informative, and a number of the questions are remarkably intelligent questions.
Indeed.
Look forward to either being able to answer them or being challenged.
Indeed. So, well, we look forward to having your questions, guys, because as we said last time, we truly sort of spent this hour just for your questions. So that is what we're gonna do, and just some few household keeping stuff. So for our members, and this is for our members only, tomorrow we have the session for Q&A for our members only tomorrow. Also on Friday, make sure to join us for live stream. We're gonna be talking about what China just found out on the dark side of the moon.
Oh,
And I got some information to share.
the hut.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're gonna do that. But before all this, of course, we want to thank you for supporting us. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do so right now. So we also wanted to thank our members and for the continued support. And for you, you might want to check out our membership at geopoliticsinconflict.com. So that's what we're going to be doing. And also, just to mention to our viewers, we are working on our guests for the interviews next week. So,
they hot.
some interesting,
Whoa.
yes,
Hot topics. People who really know what's going on.
Indeed.
And some people say they're controversial. Some
With
people
that-
say they're just telling the truth.
Yeah, and we do want to have that, Ross, because as we always explain to our viewers, we want to provide both sides of the arguments. You can't be just going one side, both sides of the argument, and let our viewers reach their own conclusions. We're not reaching the conclusion for them.
That is the whole point of this.
Exactly.
Give you the information so you can make your own mind up in terms of what serves your life, your family life, and your well-being.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the whole reason why we do what we do. So just stay tuned. We will let you know when we're going to release certain videos next week. So, okay. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, me at David Walaloo and Elizabeth at Alchemy of E. And also remember to follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. So, because you guys, the more you go there, the more we interact with all of you. So, okay, without further ado, let's jump to
Question number one.
Have them put question in front of question.
Yeah, please put, like we always do on Fridays, but just make sure put question if it is a question. So this way we can differentiate between just a statement or a question, and we'll get into that. So this is what we're gonna be doing right now. All right.
Ariel.
Yeah, go ahead. You want to read them, Ross?
Go ahead. It's too small for me to see.
Okay.
Oh, hello. For both of you, do you think NASA private stations program is actually pandering to tourism for billionaires and millionaires rather than R&D or losing face to China and Russia?
Yeah. Well, it is a good question. It is a good question.
Is good.
Why is that? Because here's the concern, Ariel, and for all of you. My big concern personally, and I'm not an astrophysicist, whatever. It's just the way where I see the trends going. My big concern is if those billionaires end up controlling the whole space program, because that's where my big concern is. This is where my in the next 10 years, I'm worried that it will be only about 7 or 8 or even 9, max of 10 major companies that controls the entire sectors of productions here in the US, including space.
I'm not afraid of it. I'm expecting it.
Yeah.
You see how many of these trends end up going that direction,
Yeah.
where the oligarchs, the power, the money, they end up controlling it.
Yeah. So that means, based on what Ariel asking, is this: if those billionaires get involved, they're not going to do it for research or they're going to be doing it for prestige. Look, I am the billionaire who got to space before you. Even what's his name, Bezos, with the guy from England, the owner of the Virgin.
Richard
Oh,
Branson.
Richard
Richard Branson, yeah.
They were competing who's going to go first. I mean, yeah, that's where we see it going. But as to China and Russia, those are for different dimensions. We're going to be talking about this on Friday to a degree, of course. But just want you to know one thing, that the space now, it is the next frontier for that competition between those three main countries: Russia, China, and the US. All right. So that is where we see the challenges coming up forward with this one, and I think it's going to change the dynamics between those three countries. So, all right. Next one.
Tamaputra, what is your opinion on India buying 400
it's
the S-400
the
missiles
S1, yeah.
From Russia, and Putin visit to Modi in India?
Actually, he's there today. Yeah, there is the visit from Vladimir Putin to India. You know, the way I read it from a geopolitical perspective is sending a message to both, to China.
Yeah.
What does it mean? And to the U.S. You know, because as you know, the dynamics between Pakistan, India,
Yeah.
but also Pakistan, Russia, or India, China, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So those are the dynamic. As to India purchasing the S-400 system, yeah, they've signed the deal against the wishes of the U.S. You know,
Interesting,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. As a matter of fact, I've even found that in some research that I conducted that India would like to go ahead and sign a deal with Russia to purchase the S-500 system, which is the next generations of that. And what does it mean is that India is going to do whatever it wants. The U.S. cannot dictate to them the term, because the U.S. needs India more than India needs the U.S. right now.
You know, we've been tracking Putin for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been looking at his open friendship with Xi Jinping.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the body language of him being really friendly with someone and liking them, and him being stern and not liking somebody.
Yeah.
And when we analyze his body language with Modi, they like each other. I'm going, oh, isn't this interesting?
Yeah. And you guys here on Elizabeth are gonna do one time down the road when the schedule permits. You're gonna do some analysis on that one. So
Yeah, and we did our first one yesterday with Biden.
and by the way, a lot of people liked that one. So
Oh.
I don't know if you got a chance to watch it or not, but if you didn't, please go ahead and check that video. It was released yesterday. It was live.
Right.
It was very, very interesting. So I watched it, Ross. You know,
Yeah.
I learned a lot from it. So the bottom line, back to the question of the India and Russia stuff. Yeah, it's a change in that, and that tells you right there, when it comes down to geopolitics, what determines the directions is the interest. That's usually how it's going. The next question will be from Kenneth.
Canaro?
Yeah.
With a national debt nearing $30 trillion, how much longer can America borrow to finance its annual $800 billion military budget? What a good question. We ask ourselves that almost every day.
Yeah. I wish most Americans ask themselves that question, but they don't, because they are too distracted. They are too occupied. They are to them, this kind of stuff, it's like, oh, what this has to do with me?
Well, there's no accountability here. The people who are making these decisions are making billions of dollars of profit, and they have for decades and decades been continuing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so even if the American public didn't know, what chance do we have to make a difference?
You're right. Yeah, it is concerning as to the amount of debt that the U.S. is acquiring, and that's going to have to bring down the system one way or another. It's like in a normal family. I mean, can you live beyond your means forever? No. You know, if you manage the debt, that's a different story. But if the debt starts managing you,
Yeah,
that is a big concern. So, yeah, where are we going with this? It is a big concern among some of us, not all, of course, because I'm concerned.
and I'm concerned.
Because where things are moving forward, because this debt is going to blow a hole one day, whether we like it or not.
A major contributor to the inflation we're experiencing.
Exactly. So that means the standard of living for Americans is going to go down.
For 2 years in a row, the average rent in major cities has been increased by 16 to 17%. That means over 2 years, you're paying 32% higher than you did 2 years ago for rent. Where do you think that's coming from?
Well,
It's the inflation that's occurring.
Yeah, and the amount of printing the U.S. government is doing. The
Yes.
amount of printing. I mean, we printed 40% of the money supply in the last 2 years than we did in the last 200 years. That's just crazy. So, oh, look at the name,
Elizabeth Robb.
Elizabeth Robb.
Question, please. What do you make of the Biden sanctioning Russia for nothing except protecting UKF.
Yeah. So it is ridiculous. As a matter of fact, we're gonna be doing live at 12:45, if I'm not mistaken, about the Russia, about President Putin's and President Biden's conversation they had yesterday, in which the U.S. threatened to sanction. Right? I mean, come on, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Well, what do we make out of it? It's just nothing but hypes. The Russians gonna shrug that off their shoulders because we've been sanctioning them forever and nothing has changed. Russia's moving forward whether we like it or not.
You look at Putin's behavior concerning this, he laughs about it.
Yeah, because it's ridiculous.
It
is ridiculous. Well, now they're threatening, as a matter of fact, some of the officials in the Treasury Department have been now looking at ways of limiting Russia's access to SWIFT system. So, and this is why, another reason why we said last time, Russia, China, and 23 other countries are moving now away from the US dollar altogether.
You familiar with the concept of a boomerang arrow?
Boomerang.
And where you get shot?
Exactly.
Well, that's what these sanctions are actually doing.
Yeah.
And boy, are we seeing huge impacts
Yeah.
of these boomerang arrows called
Exactly.
sanctions
So
over nothing.
You're right. So the bottom line to it won't amount to, it's just words. Yes, the US can apply the sanctions, but it won't work. It won't work. So, all right, next question.
Why-
EL.
EL. Okay.
EL.
EL.
Okay.
Whatever. We'd like to get your name right. Why are people so quick to jump on the anti-China rhetoric? Why do regular people gain? What do regular people gain from that? Are they bored or want to seem like they're on some moral high ground? I think it's because the propaganda machine is so good. When you start talking about, well, China stole our jobs, they stole our technology, they didn't steal it. It was freely given as a trade.
Exactly.
But I think it's the propaganda machine, because you take a look at you do an analysis of the propaganda, and it is absolutely, you need to be scared.
Yeah. Well, we look at it for us when we get comments of some idiots putting, you guys the mouthpiece of China. I mean, that's nonsense, because as we always say, we will call spade a spade. If it comes to our radar that information is corroborated and verified that China did something wrong, we're gonna state that.
Absolutely
there is
right.
No sugarcoating over that. But yeah, you're absolutely correct when it comes down to these statements that the anti-China rhetoric. Because here is the thing, in the West, especially now with the changing dynamics within the global geopolitical landscape, it is very hard for the U.S. to accept this new arrangement in which the United States does not sit at the head of the table.
A consideration here is within the next 5 years, it's likely that technology will be largely owned by China.
Yeah.
And within 5 years, their military prowess might equal that of the United States. Now is the time to come to terms with these people.
Yeah. How about space?
Oh,
that's another dimension.
It looks like they're already on the brink of dominating space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so now is the time. Not more sanctions, not more they're the enemy.
Yeah. Well, you look at it just from the statements coming out of the White House, and this is, by the way, both Republicans and Democrats.
Which is astonishing that they're paying up on
they
China.
Agreed, yeah,
they agree on something this ridiculous.
You're right. The idea of what you need to understand is that when it comes down to dealing with those sort of issues, the U.S. will always have to create either a perceived or a real enemy to justify whatever policies. That's usually what it amounts to. People who can read between the lines, they will see.
But there's the big question of who actually pays congressmen, who actually funds their campaigns. It's not you and me, even though we might donate money.
Yeah,
it's the big pharmaceuticals, it's the big military. I mean,
yeah, absolutely correct.
And so they have to come up with these ridiculous positions that do not serve the American people.
You're right. Next question. All right, Seth. Oh, thank you, Seth, for being here. Seth has been posting some stuff on my Twitter account.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And he did provide a video about something going on in Niger, I believe. It has to do with French, whatever. We're looking into that, Seth, and we're going to address that at some point.
Recently, the Wall Street Journal Post posted an article about that China is seeking a military base on the Atlantic coast of Equatorial Guinea. What is your guys' opinion on this?
It is just a conversation right now. It has not been determined. This is different than what, for example, I had a chance to go to Djibouti. I spent some time in Djibouti back when I was working inside Washington. So, and I am aware of the presence of Chinese Navy in Djibouti. They do have a presence there, in addition to the U.S., of course, and Japan. Believe it or not, Japan has some small presence there. Yeah, so I'm not surprised at this if China wants to do this. As a matter of fact, there is a lot of projects going on between China and Africa. Despite what you hear about this issue of debt trap, and that's nonsense. As a matter of fact, and here is the thing, we reached out to one of the former ministers who used to work in Africa, was in charge of the infrastructure there from Liberia. So we possibly might have him on the show, and we'll have him explain as to where this is going, as far as why some African countries are interested in dealing with China as far as ventures, infrastructures, and so forth, because they've been getting lip service from the US. That is the reason why they do it. So the installation of the possibility of a military naval base there, I'm not going to be surprised at all. But we would not expect China to go the same way as the US with 800 bases around the world. Yeah. You're not going to see that from China. All right, next question.
Coffee Sala?
Coffee Sala.
Okay. When will the proposed Eurasia high-speed rail be a reality so that I can travel by train to cover more than 10,000 kilometers in 2 days between Europe and Asia?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. I do know one thing for a fact, that Laos just received the speed train from China project.
I saw that.
Yeah, but what that's going to do, and I always think of it in this term, Aras. The question I've always been asking: why aren't we having the speed trains right here in the U.S.? One that can connect New York to L.A. in a matter of 16, 15 hours, and you can get there. So why aren't we having that? And this is when you realize the lobbyists for the aviation industry will kill any project like that.
I have firsthand experience with that one.
Yeah.
For years, I was a consultant for a local international airline.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big proposal to do a high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston. And in conversations with the chairman of that particular company, he said, "Nah, I just killed it. Politically, we didn't want to compete with them on these really lucrative routes."
Yeah.
I'm going, but it would be so good for
exactly.
I did consulting projects for their company, so I was not going to argue with him.
Of course.
And felt privileged that he told me what was really going on.
Yeah. But this one here about the Eurasia, you can only imagine when that project is completed, what it's going to do to the regional countries around there. As a matter of fact, I just came across this morning one piece of information.
Yeah.
And guess what? Is that China is in talks now with the 6 emerging economies. Can you imagine if they decide to do an equivalency to G7? That's going to make G7 look like peanut. So because emerging economy is going to be. So a speed high rail will be a big improvement in the economy. So. All right, next question.
Friendly Indo.
What
are your thoughts on Russian missiles on Kuril Islands?
Yeah, Kuril Islands. I'm not aware of that one in much detail. The ones I'm keeping an eye on right now is the development of the S-400 missile, the S-500, and also the 5th generation of the fighter jets. So that's the Su-57. Those two I am keeping an eye on because of the ability of what they can do, of what they can accomplish. So, but for this one here, I'm not aware of it, and I'm not familiar with that.
The United States, the Defense Department's running into a real problem because when they develop, say, a new jet, the cost is so outrageous, and China and Russia can do it for like 1/5 the cost of development.
Yeah.
Oh, this ends up being problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Look no further than the F-35 program.
Yeah.
How much cost to build that plane, and yet it's not working properly. So it's unfortunate. So. All right, next question.
Village idiot misnomer.
A misnomer.
His questions are so good.
It is good to see you, Village.
What does the U.S. hope to accomplish with a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics other than posturing for its domestic audience.
It makes me
RT calls the U.S. action petty.
Yeah. It has been confirmed that indeed the officials only. Possibly the White House could change its position. I doubt it.
I doubt
Yeah,
it.
but it has no. It's because it just defy logic. Why are you mixing sports with politics? Why don't you just leave politics by itself and sport by itself? Those athletes. I used to play sport when I was, my 20s, whatever, and you kind of, you try to strive, and those are Olympic athletes. Those are highly trained, and this is their lifetime opportunity.
Well, my understanding is the athletes are going to go.
They are indeed. It's just the idea of why mix the two. Just you don't agree with the country, tell them you don't agree, but leave that stuff aside. So that's
Petty is a pretty good word.
It is
It is
indeed
petty.
good description, yeah, because that's what it is.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so I don't see the purpose and reason for why they're doing that. Otro
libre pensador,
Nice
liberal
name.
thinker.
Liberal
It's in
thinker.
Spanish.
Indeed.
Do you think China is communism despite its party name? We've raised that question over and over again, and with some real heavy thinkers and experts on China, and they're pondering the same thing. We know that they call themselves Chinese communism with special features.
Yeah.
And going, when we look at it does have some elements of communism.
Yeah. And
And
their
it-
system that works for them.
And it does work for them. I mean, any system that can bring 800 million people out of poverty.
Yeah.
We know that it was a decided effort, and it took 30 years,
Yeah.
but they've done it.
They've done it. So yeah. I really don't have the key explanation to this particular aspects of it, except to know that that's how their system is, and yet they are flexible enough to make certain changes within the system itself that works for them, especially when it comes down to economics.
Yes.
That's what we've been noticing, that it works for them. So the idea of because it's easy to label here in the West, it's easy to, when you throw the negative terminologies, stigmatize whatever that might be. So you start to almost like send in a message to the population that is so oblivious to what's going on.
Yeah.
All they hear is, oh, communism this or that. That it starts to fit into the narrative of this negative perception about a system, whatever that system may be. So,
Journey to the East.
Journey, good to see you, Journey.
Any news on the U.S. debt ceiling that's due this month? Are they raising the debt ceiling again?
Well, actually, they did approve. They did approve an extension to that.
They pretty well had to.
Yeah, but nothing has been finalized, which means we will be back to square one again. It's a game they are playing with the lives of the American people. And this is where I say, and I'm going to say straightforward, shame on them. Shame on them. It's because they have no clue about the struggles an average Joe, average Jane is going through.
Even if they do, they don't care.
They don't. Why will they? Because why will they, when they are the one to approve legislation for salary increase inside Congress?
Right.
They can do this stuff for themselves. To them is like, heck with the rest of the population. And yet you are there, you, the representative, to represent the interest of the people. But as I always say, when you have a population that is so oblivious to what's going on, this is what you get. You let the politicians just do whatever they want, and that's exactly what they are doing. So the debt ceiling so far, they're gonna go back by the end of the month to negotiate. My argument is, or my assessment is that they're gonna agree for another extension. Because Republicans and Democrats don't see it. It's just because it was ridiculous as to what President Biden has suggested for the spending for the infrastructure bill. Remember, started with I think $2.7 trillion. Drop it down to 1.2.
You ready for a controversial story?
Sure.
I talk to everybody, and whatever quality I have, they tell me what they think. Sometimes it's really disturbing. So I was talking to someone who had been in political office, and wasn't any longer, and it's because they decided not to be in it. And I said, okay, tell me what's really going on here. He said, you got to understand what it's like being a politician and how many people you have to kiss up to. And what you end up doing is you end up hating the public you're supposed to represent because they've been so tough on you, so demanding, and make you feel so worthless, make you feel like a whore.
Wow.
And you're going,
Yeah.
no wonder we don't like
Yeah.
being in politics, and it's no wonder we don't care about them except we want to be reelected.
Exactly.
So we have to kiss up enough to get reelected.
Well, I'm going to share one story with our viewers. I was asked to run for Congress.
Oh,
Yeah. And I told the person who mentioned that to me, who's a friend, I said, did you smoke weed this morning? And me in Congress? They're not going to like people like me because you say straightforward first. And second, I am not willing to compromise on the trust of the people that vote me in the office, no matter what the cost is. And I said, then what will I end up being there? I'll end up being in Congress in a corner by myself
for one term.
for one term.
And they'll put up a candidate against you that they fund to the hilt. And they're going, okay.
I said to myself, I will not compromise that. And I'm not. No, I said, no, thank you. I'm not interested. Even I was told that don't worry about the funding and all that stuff. I said, no, this is where the problem is. I am not for sale. And that was it. So, all right, let's see. Next question. Oh, that's a super sticker from
Plato.
Plato. Thank you,
Thank
Plato.
you, Plato.
We appreciate it.
Is that what you actually look like?
I like some screen names. They are
Oh, yes.
very, very interesting. So, and some images. Sometimes they put an image for their screen name. So that's very interesting. Oh, here's Dakin.
Dakin's son. How do you compare the levels of threat U.S. field from China to that from Soviet Union in the Cold War? Are politicians and common people feel differently?
That is a good question. It is different. It is different. The reason being because back in during the Cold War, Soviet Union at the time, the perception has to literally, what is the difference about then and now? Then they knew the so-called the enemy. It was identified. With China, it's slightly different because China has never went about, for example, doing publicity about its nuclear stuff, doing publicity about its missiles, doing publicity about its submarines. Soviet Union back then was in a competition with the U.S. Whatever the U.S. produces, Russia would produce. Soviet Union rather would produce something better. As a matter of fact, remember, it was the Soviet Union that tested the nukes first. It wasn't the U.S. It was the Soviet Union that went to space first, not the U.S. So so the perception is slightly different. However, the tone of it, the geopolitical tone, is almost the same. That's why you hear the term within the international relations circles, you hear the term Cold War II. It's because they're trying to bring the same argument that they did against the Soviet Union to place it against China, to justify the policies. So that's where the similarities between the two.
Benjamin Yao. Many say U.S. is in decline. Well, how much decline do you see U.S. will end up? Would you imagine U.S. break up like Soviet?
That is a good question. And I kid you not. This morning, I just thought about that. I kid you not. I thought about it in terms of, will it ever happen that some states will secede from the Union?
Well, we saw what happened the last time. It was called the Civil War. And there was a very popular book out about 20 years ago called The Seven Great Nations in North America. That is the eventual breakup. And like Boston and Washington, it was called Boswash. San Francisco to San Diego, San. And they said the regions in the United States are so different from each other with different agendas, different problems. And they see what's going on in Washington being absolutely unresponsive to their needs. And what would happen if some of these regions really got serious about breaking up? Could the government stop them? Don't know.
Yeah. Well, funny you said that. Just to mention this, it was a couple of years, decades ago. It was a study conducted by the Pentagon. I read something about it. and it was declassified later. And the study was about if we are to say, let the southwest part of the United States seek independence, will this work? And they did a survey, and they found out that the majority wanted to be independent, and it sends red flags inside the Pentagon. So
wow.
that was a couple decades ago. So yeah, what's going to happen? We're going to see a decline in the economy. We're going to see a lot of deteriorating. It's already starting. So unless we save this nation, and that's what we're trying to do with all this.
Yes.
So.
Thank you, Journey to the
Journey.
East.
Thank you, Journey. We truly appreciate it. And his question is there.
It's true that each election costs $14 billion. Can you imagine those monies making good use to the public? I can imagine it, but I don't expect it.
I have to disagree with that. It's because it does not cost 14 billion. Based on the research that I did. Again, I could be wrong. The cost that can go up to $2 billion.
That's what I've heard as well.
The last cycle, both parties spent 2 billion each. So that makes it 4.
That's different from 14.
If Journey, if you are asking about the entire from I don't know. I don't have that figure exactly 14, but I did find $2 billion from each party. If we include the special donations from elsewhere, so far I have not come across that particular number.
I think a more relevant question is, if the defense budget wasn't $800 billion, how could some of that be diverted to benefit the American people as opposed to the oligarchs and power elite?
Which makes perfect sense, but unfortunately, that is not the case. So, the greed is what's driving all this.
Camium engineer. Nepal is one of the poorest nations bordering China. Nepal is very closely allied with India. Do you believe that China will extend its BRI to Nepal, and how will India take that?
I will have to correct one part of the first statement. Nepal is not. What was the first part of the question? Something has to do with India.
Yeah, how will?
No, it's not aligned with India. No. India is imposing its will on Nepal. And the reason I know this, I had a former student of mine from Nepal. So, and he was kind enough. He's from Nepal. He was kind enough to get me the accurate information of what's going on with the India involvement in Nepal elections.
Oh,
that's how much influence India has inside Nepal. It's not the other way around. Nepal never wanted to be aligned with India. So just to make this clear, based on what I found, and I have the entire paper because we're gonna do a show on it at some point.
Great.
And it was kind enough to. I asked and I said, would you be kind and verify this information for me? So he's from there. He knows the land. He's from there. So. And that's exactly what came up. So how this is going to do with the BRI? Well, of course, because India influence in Nepal, they're going to force Nepal not to agree to any agreement with India. But it will be a big loss for Nepal. It's a small country, small, wonderful people, by the way. I know more than just my former students. I know some Nepalis that I met. Wonderful people. They'll take the coat out of their back for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how generous they are.
Wow.
I admire them for that. So yeah, the way I see it is that India is going to be acting behind the scenes to push for Nepal not to agree to whatever China proposes.
Harold Cho. If real estate is not going to be the primary way Chinese people invest, do you see more domestic money going into Chinese stock market? Well, Evergrande was really a big lesson for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure every Chinese who's put money into one of those ventures is rethinking it, because Evergrande was not the only one in trouble.
Yeah. I do not have an answer for that one because I'm not an economist. It's not my area. So I can't speculate on something I do not know. I unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that one. We'll be happy to take a look at it and report back.
Yeah.
But for now, I don't have an answer for it.
David Bell.
Good to see you, David.
The USA has 3 wars to choose from. India, China, Russia. Which country will they start with?
Yeah.
Because they're going to war with one.
Yeah.
They have no choice because U.S. people will expect it. Oh, I'm not sure that's true.
Well, the short answer is it's not a laughing matter. As a matter of fact, it was a conversation inside the Pentagon that somebody was willing to even say, are we sure we can manage 2 wars?
Oh,
Which to me, it sends the signal we can't. Let's just say straightforward, knowing that what we've been engaged in Afghanistan, look what the outcome was.
yeah.
Look what the outcome in Iraq. The last 5 engagements we've been engaged in, military, they weren't meant to be a war to either win or lose.
Right.
They were meant to be only prolonged conflicts. The Korean War,
Yeah.
Vietnam, Gulf War, Gulf II, and Afghanistan. So this one, there's like the argument right now that you hear about, the U.S. is gonna engage the Russians if they walk over Ukraine, whatever. Are we really ready to engage Russia in a hot war? I mean, let's stop this nonsense. Are we really willing to send American troops to die on behalf of Ukraine?
Especially after the fiasco
Yeah.
that the United States just ended.
Yeah. And by the way, this Ukraine hypes now you hear, you know where it's coming from? Just for you to know, the lobbyists. Ukraine has spent a lot of money in Washington for lobbyists to push, including those inside of the State Department. So, yeah.
On Monday, I was talking to a person from Russia, and it's amazing how well informed a number of Russian people are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the internet and so on.
Yeah.
And they said, this thing with the Ukraine is ridiculous. And they said that the reputation for the Ukraine is that they're the most corrupt government in that region and maybe the most corrupt government in the world.
Yeah.
That's their opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the bottom line to it, the U.S. will not be able to manage to. We can't. Despite what you hear about this, we got this aircraft carriers and all this. This goes beyond that. We won't be able to, and because we never been in a war per se to win it.
Yeah.
We were in conflicts. Always remember this, guys, prolonged conflicts for a reason. So the
military-industrial complex gets to win and win and win and win.
Exactly.
Money.
And that was the purpose of it for the doctrine that was established in 1953. So that's what it is. All right, next question.
Jeffrey Hull.
Good to see you, Jeffrey.
Is it possible China tech and military is more of necessity to provide service to the population of 1.4 billion people? The People's Liberation Army is very flexible to be first responders. 5G might be just enough.
Oh, that's an interesting one. What I know personally is that the military doing it for itself first. It has to serve the establishment first. Why? Because it needs that advancements. It's no different than us here in the US. Just to give you an example, internet.
Yeah.
Emails. When I was in the military, I had a chance to work on a system that was created back in the 60s, an email.
Oh, boy.
So when the military was done with that, it pushed it to the public domain. It's no different than in China, based on my knowledge. The military establishment will have to ensure it has up-to-date technology per se that can serve the interest of the military first, for the whole country. Of course, there are reasons to protect the entire country, which logical arguments. But to say that the Chinese military, is doing the technologies to serve the people, I would say no. Because first, it has to establish that foundation to serve the military interest of the country.
You and I have had this conversation before about how come American infrastructure took off with national highways right after World War II and into the 60s to serve the military transport. Oh, but did the rest of the economy benefit? Oh, yeah. Having a remarkable interstate highway system, goods, services, travel, terrific for the economy.
Exactly.
It was military based.
You're absolutely correct, Ross. And this will be no different than what China is doing. But the best example to provide this in space.
Oh, yeah.
What the military dimensions in space will have nothing to do with an average citizen, the Chinese citizens on the ground, because these technologies for space, which we're going to be talking about on Friday. So make sure you join us on Friday live stream. So the idea of those military dimensions will serve the national interest, like every other country who is able to develop these technologies to get up there. So.
Jason, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Do you think the West went with the wrong approach on China relationship? We should have drawn China closer to our sphere of influence. How many thousands of times have you thought that?
Oh, exactly.
And me too.
Pardon me. A perfect question. Perfect question.
When China opened up and they invited the president of China to come to the U.S., Deng Xiaoping, that was the opportunity. They were celebrated worldwide, and it didn't go the way it should have, because China now became an adversary. Going,
but also I need to understand who's behind fueling this kind of, there are entities within the government itself, ours, that, it's like any other government. There are competing interests. So, and this is where, for example, to me personally, if I had a say, if one day I've been an advisor for one day, what I would say to the president, hey, you need to call Dr. Hammond over here.
Oh, yeah.
Because he will provide you a context, historical context for you to understand before you make a policy decisions that can impact the country for generations to come. But unfortunately, Washington doesn't want people like that, That's the unfortunate part. So the idea of yes, it's the West. There are narratives in the West pushing into that direction. As I always say, you have to create real or perceived enemy to justify the policies.
Oh, help, David! How are you going to pronounce that?
Yeah. Well, we're not going to butcher the name, right? We're not going to butcher it. So.
It's a wonderful challenge, though. With initial development of alternatives to SWIFT transfer clearance, will this threaten U.S. reserve currency status and therefore their ability to finance debt?
Oh my
God.
God.
I can't pronounce your name, but that's an excellent question.
Oh my gosh, big time.
Yeah,
and this is all. As a matter of fact, not only about the SWIFT. That will mark the end of the Bretton Woods system as you and I know it. And we all know the reason why. And that's the presentation we did last few weeks for our members.
Yeah.
Where we delved deeper into the not only the SWIFT, but also about the Bretton Woods system. That was the whole reason. Why? Because you have to think in terms of the financial aspects of it as a tool into your geopolitical toolbox where you can navigate international waters as far as policy. So the U.S. has that leverage now because the system, it worked on it since 1949 to establish that the world had to depend now on U.S. dollar for transactions. But now, when I say now recently, the last few years, countries are waking up. No more that. Yeah, that will be the end of the Bretton Woods system. But there are talks behind closed doors, believe it or not, about Bretton Woods 2.
Good luck.
There are talks right there behind.
The opposing forces, I think, are just too strong. Exactly. They're not going to go for it.
Oh no! Look what happened to El Salvador when Britain all of a sudden attacked Salvador. IMF attacked Salvador because they decided to use Bitcoin as their legal tender.
I think they must have forgot that El Salvador is a sovereign country that gets to look out for its own people.
Exactly. And all Salvador wants to pay its $17 billion debt in US dollar and be done with the dollar completely. And they're not willing to allow that to happen. Well, they're moving forward anyway. As a matter of fact, their bond market, just FYI, is worth $100 trillion.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes. Bitcoin is going to move forward. As a matter of fact, an article came across yesterday, I saw it, how much now the governments are truly starting to feel the threat of the Bitcoin, because Bitcoin as a decentralized platform will give the governments no say whatsoever, which means they can control. Because if you want to control a country, what do you do?
Control the money.
Control the money. That's simple. So Bitcoin does not allow that.
Gary Demas A. For decades, there's been a certain thesis that widely believe that democracy will always align with prosperity. With the economic success of China, how do you and the world see it?
Well, that's an interesting question. You remember one of our members asked the same question differently?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was the same question. So you want to take that on, or you want me to answer?
Go ahead and try it.
Okay. So the idea of the democracy has always been associated with prosperity. You are right in that first point. However, nowadays people are asking, what does capitalism do for me? What does democracy do for me? You know, how come I am living from paycheck to paycheck? How come I am looking at my life, let's say last year, and I'm comparing myself today to last year, and I'm in the same position? You will think democracy will provide upward mobility. Not anymore.
Part of the popular thinking is that capitalism really eventually leads to oligarchs and power mongers ruling and a plutocracy where the 1% get to rule everything because money tends to rise to the top.
Exactly. Well, we are witnessing that right now.
We're
Right?
certain, we talk about it often. Last year was the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the world to the wealthy.
Exactly.
Like they need more billions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that is where the concern. My big thinking is, as we move forward, we're looking at the next 5 years, 6 years or so. The way as we move forward, and this shift in geopolitical is happening whether we like it or not. The question that is going to emerge from that has nothing to do with politics, but has to do with the system itself. Now, the shift in this geopolitical landscape is going to force the conversation about the systems, especially democracy and capitalism. That's where I see it going.
I see the same thing.
So. Oh, look who's here.
It's Boone.
Boone, good to see you, Boone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
thank you. Thank you for the super sticker.
You liked the discussion on hypnosis yesterday?
Yeah, he
Excellent.
did post something. So Boone, by the way, guys, he's one of our members on the membership on the geopoliticsinconflict.com. So good to see you, Boone, and thank you very much. Oh,
Tusker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tusker, for the super stickers. You guys, I want you, on behalf of the team, I mean, I'll say it, but on behalf of the team, we want you to know how much this means to us. Is the gesture that counts. That's loud and clear as far as your support. Yeah, monetary or not, it means a lot to us, and we want you to know we shall not, never, ever forget this. So we want you to know that.
Does green/renewable energy pose a threat to the petrodollar being the world currency? And does that affect the hesitance of the U.S. expanding renewable energy?
Great question, Tasker. Incredible. You want a quick answer to this?
Go ahead.
Is that the Saudis threaten now to drop the dollar from the oil transaction,
Oh, yeah.
which is a big problem for the U.S.
Yeah.
Big. You know why? Saudi Arabia is the head of the OPEC.
Right.
All the transactions in oil are conducted in US dollar. That was the deal the United States cut with the Saudis in return for security. We hear always the term of oil for security.
Yeah.
Well, it should be worded this way: oil /US dollar for security.
Well, what's going to happen between Saudi Arabia and Iran if the U.S. isn't going to continue to protect Saudi Arabia? Well, that's an interesting question.
Well, I wrote a book about all that. So there's a section in one of my third chapter, I believe, in the Iran book, in which I address this particular question. If it weren't for the U.S. protection, Iran will run over Saudi Arabia in no time. In no time. And I kid you not, because the sheer size of the Iranian military. There will be Saudis will stand no chance against the Iranians. But the idea of the dollar is because, once again, it's a mechanism of control. And if that control is gone from the oil or the new energy comes in, the dollar will become useless.
If Saudi Arabia is going to play chicken with the United States, now is the time for the U.S. to come to terms with Iran.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Kang Lu.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kang Lu. We appreciate it.
If the root motivation against China's hatred is the West's insecurity about the former's rise, How would you advise China to improve its relationship with the West? Oh, good question.
Fair question. Fair question. You want to take that, Ross?
Well, I'm feeling a little hopeless about it because the warmongers need someone to hate. They need someone to scare us with. And the Chinese are so convenient because they're so powerful and they're so visible.
Exactly. So
what would I advise the US government? I don't have a clue because of who's controlling this event.
yeah. Well, first of all, the idea of incredible question. Thank you so much for that. The idea of hate usually brings negative energies, as we all know. And this is logical question, but also in the thinking of policymakers in Washington. Why do they hate China that much? Is it because somebody's outperform you, you end up hating him or her rather than learning or maybe cooperating with?
What a concept.
That would
Learn
be the
from or
perfect
cooperate so everybody wins.
Exactly. But like you said, Ross, there are those entities inside the White House, inside Washington, not the White House, Washington, that will not let that happen. It will make perfect sense. And this is where Dr. Hammond comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody like him with that knowledge. But as to what China needs to do, what China can't do anything that is not outside the norm of its culture and its traditions. I don't see China, for example, embarking on some strategy like what the West does with whatever, because it's not part of their structure, how they operate. Their system is only for them.
Right.
And they are reaching out to the West, but the West is coming to negotiations with
An agenda that
and-
says war and enemy.
and also with the superiority complex. Yeah, you don't need that. That's why. No, I don't see China doing anything on its end. They're gonna keep doing whatever they're doing.
Oh, help me here.
Jack.
Jask for fun?
That's a good one.
Okay. China growing its nuclear deterrent to guarantee MAD with the US, as Russia has, is the best safeguard against a kinetic war. Do you agree?
Yeah, the aspects of the MAD, which is mutual assured destruction, that's bottom line to it. As far as if you develop whatever, we'll develop similar. Yeah, well, China is within its rights to do whatever, like we do. The question becomes it's how it is worded again. The report that I read from the Pentagon regarding China's nuclear threat. Well, we have 5,500 nuclear warheads. China has about 493. They expect to have about 700 by 2030. Even if they reach 1,000, we have 5,500. You don't need 5,000. You only need one.
And the hypersonic missiles,
it's the hype of it, because it's important to psych the population into acquiring that fear, because they'll start to think in terms of the moment they hear China, they associate China with threat, nuclear, this and that, which
you and I have talked about it before. As I talk to various people, and I bring up China, we need to be afraid of them, and that's a useless nominalization. So I go after, well, what are you afraid of? They can never come up with an answer.
No,
we're just afraid.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
So the mutual demand aspects of it, yeah, they're gonna do what they want to do because they need to protect their assets or their interest, like any other country. So,
and they're doing it in a very targeted way, as opposed to billion-dollar tanks. No, they got a hypersonic missile that delivers.
Smart move.
Okay, Boo, you got something else? Okay.
Yeah.
Would the hypnoanalysis work on other language and culture for Elizabeth and Ross? Thanks. Loved the show last night. We have to do it's a lot more complicated. And that means we have to do more background work on terms of correlating their body language with the content of what they're saying through translation and doing it across a number of contexts. We believe that we can really do a good one on Putin. We could do another one on Xi Jinping and other world leaders who do not speak English. We're working on it.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely correct, Ross. I'm not involved in this, by the way, guys, because it's not my area. But all I know is that we are working on structuring now how you and Elizabeth, and we're going to take the lead on this, of course, and present, a series of it. Especially Elizabeth is going to do on one segment of it, but the other one you guys are going to do it together, and we're going to cover the whole world as far as leaders. So to provide you samples from different, taking into consideration the culture, the history, and so forth, and to put a perspective for it. So we are working on it, Boone, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch and listen to and learn from.
Well, one of the things we're considering is having native speakers help us interpret what's going on.
That is a good way of looking at it.
We have really reached out to international communities to assist us. We want to give you quality information, not just what we think.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, yesterday I looked up an individual by the name Green, if I'm not mistaken, and he is one of the leading in the world when it comes down to what you guys did yesterday. And we intend to bring him on the show. You guys are going to do a conversation with him. So, all right, next question. Oh,
Pom. Thank you, Pom.
Thank you, Pom. We appreciate it. That was so kind of them, Ross, too. Literally, that's really very touching, guys. We want you to know that. To all of you. No, we just want you to know that.
Huawei just blocked their 5G patents to be used in Canada. Oh, shocking. After Ma Wanzhong.
Yeah.
Nokia, Ericsson, Samsung, etc. use Huawei patents. This may block Canada from 5G from other companies. Do you see China doing the same to the U.S.?
Not in the U.S. yet, but for Canada, because it was specific. Yeah, the U.S. has a different approach. China's approach to U.S. is going to be different than one in Canada. No. But for Canada, it is a big problem, because you're talking about the last report that I saw. You're looking at about 5,400 employees gone. That means the Canadian government didn't think through about the consequences. And this is where we always say, for every action, there's a reaction. So they thought about it in terms of political convenience, held in Ms. Joe. Then all of a sudden, how come they didn't think about the consequences of something that is unjustifiable or illegal, shall we say?
Canada enjoyed such a good relationship with China. They opened up China before the United States did. And to have it go this direction over nothing?
Yeah. Well, even Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, he's the one who established the good relations with China. I mean, during his term, based on what I read, and I know Canadians that have been asking, they said the relations were great to the point that economically benefiting both countries.
Yes.
But
no more.
No more. So, yeah, that's going to be the impact. For the U.S., we're not going to see that yet because U.S. is banning 5G. But if China's working on 6G, the U.S. company is going to be losing out on that. So,
last one.
All right, last question.
Would you pronounce the name for me, please?
Jaboon Mohammed Amin. Good to see you, Jaboon.
Do you think that the West is willing to sacrifice for another war with Russia to rescue Ukraine?
No, they can't. And we're going to be addressing this one, Mohammed, on live stream at 12:45. And I wrote a book about Russia, so I kind of addressed this in great depth. But the short answer is no, because a lot of questions that's going to be asked is what is our interest in Ukraine? What are we doing this for? Why are we sacrificing American soldiers?
Another war we can't win.
Yeah.
But how about $2 trillion more?
Exactly. And it won't be a war. It won't be a conflict that will be direct. If it turns a hot war, it will be over before we know it.
30 minutes to evaporate Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So and
Moscow and other places.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, and it won't happen because we both know the consequences of it. So. Well, we got, let me see. We do have. Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
We have a new membership site where we can speak our mind. And so you can, please check it out.
Yeah.
And this allows you to, we speak our mind and you get to speak your mind as well without any censorship. So go to geopoliticsandconflict.com and check out what we're up to.
Exactly. Because it's a different platform where we don't have to worry about censorship. Let's just say it's straightforward. and on a platform where we can talk openly. There are few things, guys, that we are not elaborating more on for a reason, and you know it. And this is why at least we could have this session to answer questions. But if the question requires an answer that touches on that aspect, we won't be able to, unless we're gonna risk it. They can deplatform us quickly, and we don't want that.
And there are some issues that we think are critical to your health and well-being that we can't say a word about on this platform, but we can at our website.
Exactly. So, guys, just before we wrap up here, make sure to subscribe if you have not done so. Make sure to join us on Friday at 11 a.m. For our live stream. And also, we're going to have some live streams today, tomorrow. So just keep checking the channel. Elizabeth puts the time usually there with a brief description as what we're going to be covering. Once again, make sure to follow us on Twitter, me at David Waralu and Elizabeth as Alchemy of E, and also follow us on TikTok and Instagram. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And as always, stay informed.